Jim and Bill, It's Another Day podcast has been on the air just over 3 years. We started our 4th year in December. Some people have asked, how many people do you think you reach? Well, here's what Variety said.
Variety reported that the podcast had reached 427 million downloads.
427 million downloads. Oh, and by the way, that figure was globally and for the year ending in 2024. I wonder where we are now. For those who found us and made us a part of your day, thank you. Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Happy Thursday. Hope everything's going well for you.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine?
Yeah, everything's
Are you sure?
Hunky-dory, as they would say.
Hunky-dory,
It really is. Yep.
Yeah. Well, you know, by the way, Michelle Obama and her brother Craig Robinson, kind of creepy looking, but they got a podcast now that they've just launched. Every Democrat now, they're going, oh, well, podcast, that's the way to be. You know,
The picture I saw, though, looked like Michelle was, looked strange. I'll just leave it at that. I didn't get a chance to read the article, but she didn't look like the first lady anymore. Maybe I'm seeing.
Well, I mean, it was casual, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm sitting there going, and her brother, who basically just sits there and goes,
Well, he adds the important stuff to the show, you know.
Yeah. But she's saying it's a podcast where everyday people can come on board and just talk about things and get advice. Yeah, that's just what America needs. Advice.
Well, wait a second. Let me see if I got this right. This is from a lady who has an $8 million house in Washington, D.C., and a $10 million summer residence in Nantucket, and then has a multi-million-dollar estate, formerly the estate used for the TV show Magnum P.I., but the house they had there wasn't good enough. They literally tore that house down and built a new house on that land, right on the water. So she's got multi-millions of dollars worth of property. She had a $60 million deal with Netflix, and she's doing a podcast for the common man? Is that what you're saying?
Of course she is. And you know what? Maybe she's going to teach you how to be a Democrat thief. Because people in politics, have you noticed, I know we've said it before, but if you sit there, and you know what? There are Republicans this way too. They make $140,000 or $170,000 a year. Now, she didn't get a salary. Barack did. They got $400,000 a year. So, okay, in 8 years, you know, they got about $2.4 million or something like it, maybe whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
That was their salary. Now, you're not really out there supposed to be making any money. You're doing stuff or profiting off the White House while you're in. But apparently they did, because they had book deals, movie deals, all kinds of deals. And you can cut a book deal and say, well, the book won't come out until after I'm out of the White House. But the money comes up front, and no telling what else they do. Well, how do they buy those, you know, Martha Vineyard estates and everything else?
By the way, Bill, I should point out to people, don't think that Michelle is spending hours sweating over a hot keyboard writing the book. No. They have ghostwriters. They have dweebs who they say, okay, I'm going to write a book now, and sit down at the keyboard. Let me tell you about my life. And they kind of dictate little things. Well, when I was young, and they tell a story to the typist, essentially. The typist then takes it and puts it in book form. You know, they call
what you do?
Ghostwriters.
You sit there. It's going to be 10 chapters.
Right.
Chapter 1, the beginning years. I grew up a small, poor child in Fresno, California.
Yes.
They take it from there, and they write that whole chapter.
Right.
Next chapter.
My early years.
My early years and how I got into the business. You might give them the details a little bit.
Yes.
You know, bullet points is all you can do. So you can do
what
that
you're
in the
saying
course
is there's a formula to these things.
Right. There's a formula, and you can have that knocked out in about an hour. And then you hand it
an hour,
maybe a little less.
That's a fast typist, I'll tell you. That's somebody.
And then you hand it to them, and you know what? In this day and age, they can sit there and take all the memoirs and everything. As a matter of fact, if you go to Squibbler is a book writer, and one of the things they have in there is the template for Michelle Obama and her books.
Wait a second. You're saying that there's an AI program out there right now that will
Scribbler.
actually write the book.
From beginning to end. And if you can't come up with the bullet points, you can just say, okay, I want to write a story about a little boy who grew up picking his nose, but he also knew how to pick stocks, so he had a finger of gold. And there's your story. And I need it to be.
Pretty soon you'll be able to say the things like Squibbler and AI programs like that. You'll be able to say, I want to write the book in the style of F. Scott Fitzgerald, or I want to write the mystery in the style of Jack Higgins. Really? You can do that now?
You can.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, you can.
Everybody can be a great writer now. Holy smokes. Well, Michelle Obama has a podcast, huh?
She's got a podcast, and every other Democrat's going to have a podcast. What they're going to do is muddy the waters with their messages aren't getting out in liberal media because people aren't buying your crap. You think they're going to buy it from the internet? No. You're going to chase everybody away from
Bill.
this.
Calm down, William.
They're going to chase everybody away from this forum, and
our listeners know a good thing when they got it.
all right, here's a prediction, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this.
All right.
Their podcast, like her books, are going to be bestsellers, #1 in a heartbeat, and she's going to get an award for it, just like the Oprah Winfrey podcast. It was
sort of like Al Gore getting an Academy Award for film.
Yeah, because Oprah did get a podcast award.
Well, Al Gore got an Academy Award for best documentary.
Yeah, and I never heard of the Oprah podcast.
No,
she won. She is the best of all the bestest podcasters.
Right.
And I'm like going,
say what?
Wait a minute, because she's in that elite group. It's her name.
Sure.
Well, I better be #1. I've done one show, and I'm sure because of her background doing TV, she probably does it. Okay.
Yeah, I know she has.
Show.
She has a decent amount of people who followed her syndicated program who they'll test it out and see whether the podcast is worth listening to. They'll be disappointed.
And Michelle's book. No, I don't know. They say, oh yeah, it's a #1 bestseller. Well, I remember seeing the little things on that, and every once in a while my son goes, hey, let's go out and go do some stuff, and we always end up by Barnes & Nobles. So I see the display there of all the books.
Right.
I'm there a week later, and the only thing that's changed on the display is there's a little bit of dust on it. None of the books have sold. Nothing has moved. I'm like going, how in the hell is she a bestseller?
But if you go
but
if you go there a month later, you'll see a sticker that says discounted, 20% off, and then a few weeks later, 50% off, and then a few weeks later, 90% off.
And then, but see, she gets credit for the sales because when those books ship,
yes,
all right,
they're sold to the bookstore.
Yes and no, because it's a receipt for the shipping. They have to generate a receipt. That receipt is then turned in as sales, but that's not sales by, John Q. Public that buys that book. I would dare you to go to, if you've got 10, 20, 30 Democrat friends, call them up. Hey, do you have Michelle's book? Huh? Do you have her book?
Well,
you hear crickets.
I don't know whether she has much to offer the conversation, if you ask me. I think that there'll be some people who will listen to it because there are people who will listen to anything sometimes. But
I did before I could talk about it. I listened to 10 minutes of it. That was about it. And it was her talking about and her brother going, yeah.
He adds the most interesting parts to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, what she was saying is, well, as kids, when they grew up, their family were, they were tight, loving family. They'd sit down at the kitchen table, and they would do this a couple of times, at least once a week. And, Dad and Mom would sit there. Well, how's it going? Do you have any questions? And here's what we're doing as a family, because we're a loving, caring family. They were that way. And they would sit there and talk about and discuss things. You know what? I've seen Shinola, and I've seen
Okay.
people
I know where you go with this.
and people
Yes.
shovel
Yeah.
manure.
Yeah.
And I know the difference. And sweetheart, you're shoveling
Yes.
a
Well,
lot.
we can leave it at that. Hey, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We got some. We yesterday seemed to be there was a sale on liberal judges interfering with the executive branch of government.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me.
And
let
you
me-
know the
let
one
me-
thing I was
ahead.
going to say. Do you notice they're all Obama judges?
Right.
You need to pay particular attention to that.
Right.
Obama, all appointed. If that doesn't send off a flag,
Let me give people an idea of what we're talking about. Federal judge on Wednesday shredded Department of Justice lawyers and ordered Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to issue a written retraction over a transgender troops article he posted on X. Let me tell you something, friends. It's called free speech, and she can shove it. Pardon my French. There's got to be a point. See, one of the things that Biden did in his administration was they ruled that his canceling of college debt was illegal and that he couldn't do that. And you know what Biden did to the courts? Biden flipped the fickle finger of fate, you know which finger that is, to the courts. Mm-hmm. He ignored the ruling and kept doing the elimination of the college loans, and nobody did anything to him. And I would submit that at some point, either they got to expedite the ruling to the Supreme Court, get the Supreme Court to stop this interference from these local dweeb judges who have an agenda. They've got to get off their ass and do something for the country. This Supreme Court, they sit and pontificate in their wonderful building, and every so often they have a ruling of some import, and they seem to screw that up all the time. Yeah. And I'm just saying that. I told you about the Pete Hegseth thing. I want to tell you the other things that came down. A radical judge, Tanya Chutkin, allows states' attorneys general to unveil the names of DOJ employees. If I were the executive branch, I would tell them you do not do that. That is, I don't care what the court says, you don't do it. And Obama Judge Beryl Howell sides with Perkins Coie, the DNC law firm linked to Hillary Clinton. You know, they just lost their security clearance, so obviously they appeal it. So they go to a liberal judge. The judge says you can't take away. So no, understand something. In the executive branch, there's only one person that has the right to do that. That's the president. He has the absolute right to do that. This is now a constitutional crisis between the judicial branch and the executive branch. And they've got to fix this.
We're a very sick nation. And the fact that you got these Obama, Chutkin sitting there going, you got to release the names. All right, Tanya, baby, well, let me tell you something. If you want the names of all the DOJ people, everybody that's fired or has shredded documents, well, we know the names. Why don't we just go ahead and release them to the public?
Well, they will have some ruling from some judge who says you can't do that, too.
Well,
it's very obvious to even the casual observer now that the plan on the left is everything that Trump does that you don't like, you take it to a liberal judge, a like-minded judge, and that judge will rule against it. And now you'll have an order of the court that will seem to be the end-all of the argument. Understand these people are just as much on the left as anybody. These judges are as leftist as Chuck Schumer. You know,
do you not think that they're part of a cell, that they're out there to be activated, that they are
absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, so they're beholden. They're marching to orders, and they're sitting there going, they feel that they're in power, and they're going, okay, we got Trump to deal with. You know, we can sit there and derail him for 4 years before we just go back and steal it back and take it back all over again. So they're going to have to get more aggressive and be more assertive of how we do things. Now, back to the Obama thing and his thing on the he auto-penned everything, so he didn't even do it. So for him to ignore a ruling,
You mean Biden?
well, he didn't. I mean, yeah, well,
Yeah,
Biden.
right.
Excuse me, but Biden ignoring something, he probably didn't even know that he signed it.
And here's the thing, on most of those executive orders, they say signed in the city of Washington, D.C. on the order.
but he's out in St. Croix or in
Yeah.
Delaware.
Yeah, he was.
So
even by that, it's false.
So who is running the country? It's not all these. Now, I think there were situations where DEI people got away with doing things, but I think that there's another power there that probably that goes back to Obama and Hillary. And I was sitting there yesterday going, yeah, we haven't heard from them in a while. It's about, and boom, there it is. They have been quiet too long. And even though you didn't hear from Hillary direct, she's off somewhere, and Obama direct.
When Woodrow Wilson was sick, his wife essentially was running the country. But she, at least, they did it from the White House. They stayed in the White House. Jill, probably most of the cases, she was off with Joe in St. Croix or Delaware. So they can't even say that Jill had the executive auto pen. She wasn't around the White House. So you have to ask yourself, who has the authority to use the auto pen? Kamala didn't give a damn about what was going on. She was off doing her own thing, ignoring whatever she could ignore. She was, they used to say that she was kind of lazy at being vice president. She didn't really participate. So who was signing all of these orders? And you have to ask yourself, okay, who did they give the pardons to? Fauci? Milley? A bunch of other people, I can't think of their names, but there's a list out there of people who you have to scratch your head and say, well, if they got an auto pen pardon, is that pardon worth anything? Is that pardon going to hold up in any court of law? I mean, that would be like you signing my mortgage on my house bill. If I don't sign it myself, it's not valid. Anything else is a forgery. So
how many important things did we do during the Biden administration that were of import that we, don't have any legal?
Well, you know what they say? They honestly say that an auto pen. People say, well, what do they have it for? They have it for signing, like courtesy letters or thanks for coming to the White House. All the best, President Biden, and he signs it. That's not really him signing that letter to the visitors. It's not for truly important executive things. It's more for the show stuff. The stuff you'll find almost in a gift shop.
You get a Christmas card from the White House. You get a Christmas card.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've done anything in your life, you get that. I remember when Ronald Reagan was in, a lot of the radio stations, not everybody, but a lot of people got the Christmas card from, Ronald Reagan in the White House.
For example,
but he didn't sign it.
When you get a letter during campaign time, election time, and they want donations, and you get a letter in your mailbox from Donald Trump, you're thinking, oh, my God, and he signed it. No, that's not him. That's the auto pen, okay? That looks like his signature, but it's not. He didn't spend his time signing, 3 million letters. You'd never see the guy.
You'd see his arm in a sling the next time you saw him.
Exactly.
He'd have arm cramp for the next 10 years.
But they're trying to tell you that it's okay to use an auto pen to give out all these pardons and all these deals.
Yeah.
I got a feeling that that's going to be a bigger story down the road than you can imagine. But, some people, Bill, are saying, at what point are we going to start seeing some action? We're seeing all of this pushback from these small judges who think they have the authority to, stick a bar into your front tire and stop your bicycle. Boom, I think they got to at some point come back now and stop this.
There is good news out there, even though it's just a glimmer. The simple fact is you mentioned it yesterday. The price of eggs are coming down. Trump got in office at day one. Well, he did start doing things day one, but doesn't mean that everything changes day one. Everybody's worried about, runaway economy, the inflation and everything. Inflation numbers came out, and they are down, lower than expected. So we're on the heel. We are mending as a nation. It's slowly coming around. You've got more businesses, that are opening factories that have announced it since Trump was inaugurated than ever before, and that's going to be factories and jobs. Now, these factories don't build themselves overnight.
You know what I've noticed, and I wanted to point this out before I forget. All of these pundits now, they're saying, well, Trump said that he was going to cut taxes. He was going to cut taxes. Oh, taxes are going to come down. And yet, the first thing he does is essentially elevate taxes. And I scratch my...
not.
Well, let me tell you what they're saying. They're saying that tariffs are taxes. Now, and I tried to explain this yesterday, and I'm going to say it again one more time. I don't think tariffs are taxes. They are fees that foreign countries have to pay to import, or actually, to export their product into our country. Okay, that they're fees that you have to pay, because we have to pay reciprocal fees on the other end. When we're trying to sell our stuff in their country. Now, I don't think of that as a tax. I think of that as a fee. They're saying, well, the average man, the price of the goods will go up. What it means, you have a choice when you buy stuff. For example, when you buy a wrench, you can buy a wrench that's made in Shanghai. You can buy a wrench that's made in Dallas. The one in Shanghai, they say, is cheaper, or it was cheaper. Well, now it's the same price. Well, you buy the one. It's not really like a tax is something you have to pay. You don't have to buy the wrench, by the way, too. You can always borrow your neighbor's wrench and give it back to him. They're trying to make it sound like the things that Trump is doing is breaking his promises to us. And I would submit that you look around and see what he promised, and look how hard he's trying to make those things a reality.
What you have to realize, and see, this is what the Democrats don't want to talk about, is that we've never had a level playing field. If the playing field was level, then tariffs are just the cost of doing business with us and vice versa, and they should be the same across the board.
I think that's a good cost of doing business. It's a fee.
Yeah. But the simple fact is, Canada, who's rearing their heads, all right? And, Biden was quick to cut off our oil production, cut off our steel, all this stuff, and Trump is bringing it all back. Everything that we are paying a high tariff on to import here, and we don't pay a high tariff on. We pay a high. Either way, we're paying more than we should. It costs more to buy our stuff going into them because, let's say that I make a gallon of milk. Well, my gallon of milk is
200%. We pay a 200% tariff.
Right. So that's what it's going to that we pay. And so it costs more.
Yeah, they charge us 200% more, to sell our product in Canada.
And then we don't charge that. So, it's cheap for them to sell their stuff here and there, where they don't pay tariffs on their own stuff. So they get their own market and they get our market. We get our own market, but we don't get their market because with their tariff, we're priced out of business.
We have allowed, and I blame this on the other previous administrations, we've allowed them to put it to us time and time again. And we like that doofus who says, "Thank you, sir. Can I have another?" It's like we don't value and we don't work on balance in our trade situation. And Trump is saying no more. We're doing balance. If you're charging us 200%, we'll charge 200%. You're going to see a level playing field in trade, or you're not going to trade with us.
Exactly. This is a Bic pen. You can't see it because we don't do video, but I'm holding a Bic pen. All right. This pen cost me 99 cents. But that pen, let's just say for us to produce, cost 10 cents. All right? So it costs 10 cents to produce. So you buy it here for 99 cents. But if we ship it to Canada so we can get the Canadian market, well, they put a tariff on it. And let's just say that they put a 200% tariff on it. So now it doesn't cost 10 cents anymore.
It costs $3.
Yeah, it costs
Roughly.
$3.
Yeah.
So, 30% more charge up for them to sell it. Nobody's going to buy that damn pen when it's $5 or $6. When, they make the same pen.
So what does BIC do? They build a plant in Ontario someplace.
And you lose a job because
that's right.
For BIC to compete, you lose that job so they can go compete over there. Now, the only way that you win in that scenario is if you own BIC stock and they do well and you make money that way. But not everybody owns stock. You're a 9-to-5er. And so if you're a 9-to-5er and you're working for somebody or making something, you want look.
What I was trying to say, Bill, before was do not listen to all of these experts and pundits on these programs. Just because someone comes on the program and they say he's an economist, president of so-and-so exchange or whatever, don't always think that he's the expert. He may have a knowledge, but he also may have an agenda. Use your own brain. It's not hard, by the way.
If look at it this way. Let's say that you got a football team. I got a football team, and we both go out to the field to play. Except, you know what? You're the United States. Your team? I'm Canada. So my team goes out there with, nothing on the board. Or I might get spotted 10 extra points. You, on the other hand, you're 25 points in the hole to begin with. So now I've got a 35 points.
35 point lead.
Yeah. And that's how it is. You're not playing fair. So don't let them go, well, there are items where the tariff might be
right.
10%. But that's for a cough drop, or probably that's a drug, so it's probably high. But it's a hard thing to explain, but I think we have in a awkward way.
Hey, no, I think you did a good job. I should point out one other thing, by the way. The other day I said, and I was confused on this because they have a strange system up there. But Trudeau he's leaving office, and they talked about this other guy who was basically as liberal as Trudeau, who was going to be taking his place. Well, I thought that he was going to be a candidate facing off against the conservative, and the people would have a choice. But apparently, I was wrong. Apparently, how they do it up there, and I was confused. Apparently, when you step down during your term, your party inserts another person into your slot because your party doesn't lose its power. Do you know what I'm saying? It would be like, for example, if Trump were to resign our system, right, and we didn't have our secession like we have right now, the party would say, okay, we're going to stick so-and-so in, meaning the Republicans would stick somebody into that office. That's kind of how they do it up there in Canada. So Trudeau leaves, he's a liberal, and the Liberal Party gets a chance to insert another liberal in that position, I think until the end of Trudeau's normal term, when they'll have an election,
So it gives that guy a chance to take hold and,
to be an incumbent, Bill. Yeah, you're right. It's
that's a dirty trick.
And the other thing is this: don't expect much from the Canadian government because they're as corrupt as a lot of governments. Okay, I'm just saying that. It's a matter of fact. There are a lot of people in Canada who are decent conservative people. I would submit that probably the majority of the people are that way. They're getting shafted by their own government.
Yeah, you know what you can do to Canada right now. But see, if you're a liberal, no, I want my moose head and all that stuff. You don't need moose head. We have things right here, made right here, that are as good, if not better. Let them choke on their products.
Yeah,
they've been choking us for a long time. Let them see how it feels. No, look.
Now I'll tell you about a product that you should not ignore, and if you haven't tried it, you really should. You know what that is, Bill? Think about it for a second. It should be in the tip of your tongue.
Well, actually, it's the cup is at my lips. It's Right Side Coffee.
You got that
Jim
right.
and Bill's Right Side
That's
Coffee.
right. Jim and Bill's
Good
Right Side
stuff.
Coffee. Yeah. And there's only one place to buy it. That's at rightsideshop.com. Rightsideshop.com. You should go to our website, by the way, which is itsanotherday.com, and check out some of the changes we've done to the page. You can see the product. You can click on the product right from the page, right from our It's Another Day page, and you can go right to the order. You don't even have to go to the Right Side Shop, website. You can go to our page. It's Another Day.
There
Is
you
that
go.
confusing? Am I losing you in this?
Well, no, actually, instead of saying, there's rightsideshop.com, there's a link at the top of the page. There's It's Another Day. Just remember Jim and Bill, It's Another Day. You type in Jim and Bill,
Yeah.
and that shows up in the search. And there, before your very eyes, you
Yes.
see the product right there. You click the product, you go right to the sales page.
You can almost smell the coffee. I'm not
Yeah.
saying you can smell it, but when you get to the picture and you see the coffee bag, you can almost smell the richness, the flavor, the taste, the aroma of Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's really worth just a trip to get a whiff. I'm not kidding you. Would I kid you? Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. We don't get all the profit, by the way. I know you think we do.
No,
we don't. We only get a percentage. Everybody's got their hand in the till. I'll take my pit here, and that's
We get a pittance of
yes,
stuff. Yeah,
but
that's it. But
it's going to, and we're not buying any villa on the Riviera. We're using it to
you're not?
promote our show. Are you getting a villa on the Riviera?
Hold on that
wait a
villa
second.
purchase, all right? Hold on the Phillips. Okay.
Wait a second.
It's not going to look good for me.
I got to check the books again. Something's wrong with this deal.
Oh, no, don't check the books.
Hey, listen.
I'm going to sick Tanya on you.
Okay, good. Hey, enjoy a nice cup of Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee as soon as you can. You'll like it. You'll become sold on it, and you'll help our program out too. Also, you help our house singers, our house band, which
Yes.
happens to be Juan, Jose, and the Border Crossers.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Ah, yes, Right Side Coffee. Try some as soon as you can, if not sooner. Anyway, other things to talk about. There's a brand new show from Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half long, and they have he has one of my favorite guests on, Doug MacGregor. I don't always agree with what Douglas MacGregor, Colonel MacGregor, has to say, and he's not always right. I should point that out because he's made some predictions and he said some things, and I've followed along, and they haven't happened. But I would say that out of all of his predictions, he's probably batting around 75%.
Well, that's pretty good.
That is darn good. He'd be in the Hall of Fame if he were a baseball player. But
yeah, gambling odds there. He's a good bet.
So Tucker Carlson, he does a really good podcast. I'd play the whole thing for you right now, but then it wouldn't be It's Another Day with Jim and Bill. It would be It's Another Day with Jim and Bill and Tucker, But they were talking about Ukraine. And I'm only going to play a couple of segments this morning. It's really worth listening to. Ukraine, he thinks, is corrupt. And I happen to agree with him. I think the people are wonderful. And my God, and he even says the soldiers are courageous, probably no better. They fight in the face of adversity, and they just keep fighting. They're an amazing army, but the government itself is not a good government. Listen, this is Colonel Douglas MacGregor.
I think the Russians were disappointed in us because they detected we're sincere in terms of wanting to end this conflict, but they don't understand why he does not act to remove this regime, remove this man Zelensky, and put a stop to it. There's this constant drumbeat about a ceasefire. Well, the Russians are highly organized and disciplined. They can stop whenever it makes sense to do so. The Ukrainians are not in the same category. They seem to be a rogue organization now. We've got, 200,000 of them here in the United States, and I don't know how many thousands of them are working for the SBU, the Ukrainian Secret Police. They're now running around threatening everyone that has criticized Ukraine or opposed support for Ukraine.
An Alex Jones staffer was just murdered 2 days ago who was on some list put together by the Ukrainian government or its supporters of critics. He was murdered outside of his house. I mean, I don't think it's crazy to think, given the number of assassinations they've pulled off or attempted, that he was killed by them. You think that's possible?
Well, I would be very worried about our president. I think the president is very much at risk, and these people seem to know no sense of limitation. They're capable of anything. So I hope the Secret Service is on its toes. I'm sure Kash Patel is well aware of this in the FBI. I just don't have any good feelings right now about the Ukrainians. I think they're done. They're finished. They've lost the war. So all of these are sort of acts of vengeance, if you will, last resort. Hurl whatever you have as deep as you can into Russia and just kill, murder, maim as many Russians as possible.
But to what end?
Well, to harm Russians and then try to create the illusion that there is some hope for them, that they can somehow or another mobilize more manpower and put more forces into the field. They can't. They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. I think the issue right now is the following. The Russians have the initiative, strategic initiative. This war is effectively at an end as far as they're concerned in terms of having won it. They now have to make some decisions. So you have to put yourself not so much in the place of Zelensky. He's irrelevant. The Russians are not surprised by what he's done. I think they're surprised that we haven't intervened to try and stop it. That's what I think they're surprised about. So what they want now, the Russians, is an end to this nonsense. They have several options. They now have concentrations of forces in the northeastern part of Ukraine and down in the southeastern part. They can move at will at any time. They have enough force they can cross in Kherson. They can take Odessa. They can move forward and straight into Kiev. Whatever they do, they have to ask themselves, how far do we want to go to guarantee our security as Russians? And they have never really wanted to go very far. That's never been the intent. But over time, they've been pushed more and more and more to secure more territory to protect themselves. This latest act is probably convincing Russians that they should go straight to the Dnieper River, cross into Kiev, root out this regime, root and branch, cross down south and take Odessa, and turn rump Ukraine into a landlocked country. I'm sure there are people that are arguing for that. There are other Russians who are saying, the hell with this. Let's just crush Ukraine once and for all. This is a permanent cancer. It's not going to go away. People from the West are always going to try and go in and incite them. So let's march to the Romanian and Polish borders, right to Moldova, and be done with this. In the middle of this sits President Putin. And President Putin is nothing if not a very judicious person. He's a very thoughtful person. This is someone who does not act impulsively. I'm sure you saw that.
I have.
Everything is calculated. So he's going to sit there and say, what do I want to do? What makes the most sense for Russia? Set aside the emotion. And he also knows President Trump, and he says President Trump wants an end to this. So do I. How do I nudge President Trump and say, help us? We want to end this just as much as you do. Help us a little bit. Can't you rid us of this man Zelensky and this little MI6 CIA-supported cabal that surrounds him? Can't you help us with this? But on the other hand, he's looking at his people, and they're saying, don't depend on anything the West promises. Don't believe anything the West says. So march to the Dnieper, cross the river, end this once and for all. This is the decision point. It's a strategic inflection point in the history of Europe, because you now have a Russian leader with the power, with the capability to do anything he wants. But this is a Russian who doesn't want to march west. He doesn't want to rule Ukrainians. He's not a fool. He knows those people don't want to be ruled by Russians. So it's a difficult position, but he has to end it. And there's the other danger is who knows what comes next. They killed this Russian general who had a very prominent role, and his name escapes me right now, but he was killed recently. He had a very prominent role in identifying the attempts by the Ukrainians to build a dirty bomb and also to launch attacks on the nuclear power plants. He knows there are people over there capable of that kind of lunacy. So that also has to figure into his calculus.
It's got to be one of the most evil governments in the world.
It is. Well, look at what they've done to their own people. I mean, how many of these Ukrainians have died needlessly? The handwriting was on the wall 2 years ago. Why would you drag this thing out? And Putin has not wanted to drag it out, but he has also not wanted to give people in the West the impression that he's interested in doing anything more than removing the Ukrainian menace. In other words, he's not interested in conquest, doesn't want to march west. I mean, how many times can he and Lavrov say this nonsense?
Douglas MacGregor, Part 1. We have another segment coming up in just a few minutes. It's interesting. In the interview, I heard more of the interview than we're playing here today, obviously. It's an hour-and-a-half interview. Really worthwhile listening to if you haven't heard it. But in that interview, he says that the Ukrainians have lost, we hear figures thrown around. He says the Ukrainians have lost, best guesstimate, 1.5 million men. 1.5 million men. We're not really being told that figure. But that's the figure the military is.
And really, what's their population?
I think it's about 26 million. So they've lost about a 26th of, or maybe a little more of the population. Yeah. But Bill, they've lost like a whole strata of military-aged men. Yeah,
exactly. Soldiers. And they've lost a demographic.
Yes, exactly right, and that's why they've had to expand it on either end. They're hiring younger people. They're drafting younger men into the military now, and older men too. Sort of like Germany in World War II at the end.
Yeah, and I'm sure they got mercenaries in there too that are getting blown to hell that we don't know about.
It's amazing. We were sold a bill of goods. I'm afraid we were told a certain story, a narrative that the deep state wanted us to hear. That Zelensky was the George Washington of his time or the Winston Churchill of his time. And it really wasn't true. If you look back before Zelensky was in office, all you had in the Ukraine was corruption. So why would all of a sudden Zelensky come in and all of a sudden the narrative changes to like it's a great government?
Yeah.
He's not in office legally really right now. He's a military, what do they call it? Martial law.
And you know what? The salary that he actually gets from his country, it's a pittance.
Yeah.
And I mean, we charge nothing for our show, and we make no money from this, and we are paid better than him. I'll just put it to you that way. So how is he affording everything? And he doesn't want to give up.
You're going to hear it in the next segment, but they talk about we gave them those missile launchers, shoulder-fired missile launchers, and a lot of them ended up like in our southern border. I'm not kidding you. Let's say they had 100, just say a number of 100. We gave them more than that, but you give them 100 of those, missile launches, shoulder-fired missile launchers, and 50 of those launches are owned by the cartel right now. They had an interview with border guards a couple of days ago, and the border guard said, hey, we can take you over that hill over there. You can't see it from here, but if we take you over that mound over there, you're going to see all these rocket-propelled grenades, grenade launchers. You're going to see those shoulder-fired missile launchers that Trump gave to the Ukraine. You're going to see a bunch of them over there. They're selling the stuff that we're giving them. That's how corrupt Ukraine is.
I do wonder, though, if we think we know the story of the Ukraine and what everything's about, but do we really, really know what this fight is all about? We think it's a distraction, it's this and that, but maybe is there something, even more low-lying that we don't know about?
Well, I think that we've been told that the bad guy is a good guy over there. We've been told, I don't think that Putin is necessarily a good guy, but I don't think he's the villain that we've been told he was.
Look,
I do think that he's out for the best interest of Russia and Russia alone, but then again, that's what Trump's out for the best interest of us alone. So is that wrong? So
no, it's not. And, look, you look at Bush, the first Bush in the White House. I mean, it was CIA. He did some nefarious things. So, here he is, thousands of shiny lights here, or whatever it was. But either way, he did some pretty bad things in his time. Was he a good guy, a bad guy? I guess it depends on whose side you're on and how you judge him. Same thing for Putin. He is a countryman. He did some bad things. He was with the KGB. But what I've noticed over the course of time, he is wanted things for his country. It's just, what will he do for his country?
I just think we shouldn't have gotten involved in that war at all.
No, we should never have.
We were just coming off of an embarrassment in Afghanistan, and all of a sudden we're throwing our stuff into the Ukraine, and it was all because of money for the military-industrial complex. It wasn't for our well-being as a country. We didn't have a reason to be there. It didn't have an effect on our lives. And maybe people will say, well, Harrington, you're an isolationist. Yeah, maybe we should think a little bit more like that right now, because we've shown ourselves to be inept at some of our foreign policy,
Now, for all that money for the military-industrial complex, which, by the way, you and I pay for,
right?
What did we get?
We got nothing.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. But a whole lot of it.
You know what? I mean, we probably got an abundance of nothing.
Yes, we did. We got a whole. We got a whole.
How do you measure that deal?
Yeah.
There's no way to measure that deal.
Douglas MacGregor continued. This is part 2. Listen.
Is there any European population? So there are many European leaders who have suggested, some have said out loud, others have hinted that they're going to send troops to fight Putin.
It's absurd.
Is there any European population that wants that?
No, not a chance. I mean, the British are probably the furthest from Russia, and they all know what their army consists of today. It's a bad facsimile of what was there 200 years ago. It goes back to Bismarck's famous remark in 1879. He was asked by a British journalist, what would you do if the British army landed on the North German coast? He said, well, I'd have it arrested. And everyone was upset, but he was right. The British army was about the size that it is now. And the German army at that point numbered, 600,000 with a capacity to mobilize millions. So this is all nonsense. The same thing is nonsensical in France. All my friends in the French military, and I've got several, have told me, Douglas, this is absurd. The only thing the French army is prepared for is to go on safari in Africa.
Yeah, and they're pulling out of there.
And of course they're pulling out. This is a waste of time, money, and resources, all of it. The issue for Donald Trump is as follows, and I think this is what's most important for him to keep in mind. And his instincts are good. If he follows his instincts, he'll be fine. He needs to stop listening to the people around him. Number one, any war that breaks out today involving the United States and Russia, and whether or not Russia, we want it to be involved, Russia is involved in the Middle East. Russia is involved in Eastern Europe. Whatever happens, the war will expand. We will end up with multiple enemies arrayed against us. China, BRICS in general, and certainly Iran and other states in the Middle East. So the first thing is all wars will expand. So don't start one under any circumstances. It will expand out of control. The second thing is he's going to discover the hard way that we are grossly overstretched and overextended. The American military establishment is in no position to fight any kind of long war. Remember, we used to talk about the long war that we were supposed to fight? That was all nonsense. If you look at all of the simulations that involve us against Iran or us against any number of great powers, they all end in 2 weeks. Well, why does the war end in 2 weeks? Because in 2 weeks, we've exhausted everything that we've got. There's no more ammunition. There are no more missiles, no more rockets. I would say, in truth, right now, it's closer to 1 week, maybe 10 days. And we don't have this scientific industrial base with manufacturing capability that is humming along 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We can't match Russia, a nation of 140 million? Imagine that economic base producing in China. China is in a position today that we were in during World War II and in the aftermath. We were the productivity giant across the world. That's China. So you can't go to war with these people. You'll be buried by them with conventional weapons and ammunition. And anyone who thinks a nuclear exchange makes sense, deserves to be shipped off to the nearest asylum. And I think Trump understands that. So those first two things, anything that we do expands out of control. Secondly, we're overstretched, overextended. Our forces are tired. They're very exhausted. The naval forces in particular have a lot of problems. Not just them, but, they're the ones that are sitting out there on the front line right now. And then on top of that, you have the Air Force. And the Air Force cannot field thousands and thousands of fighters and bombers. We lost 18,000 bombers trying to penetrate German air defenses during World War II. We in the Royal Air Force, 18,000 bombers. Air defenses today in Iran are substantial, and they are capable. This is the S-400. They are layered with multiple kinds of missiles over a vast area and radars. We are going to lose aircraft. No one knows how many because we've never fought our way through it. But we don't have thousands to lose. So in an attrition setting, we can't win. And unfortunately, when you're 6,000 miles away from home, it's attrition. You can't replace rapidly. You can't reload rapidly. You can't resupply rapidly. Logistically, it's a disaster. Then finally, you see what's happened in the market recently. Dropped 900 points. What do you think happens if there's a war in the Middle East or in Eastern Europe? It'll just intensify the sell-off. Everything tanks. All confidence will be lost. No one in their right mind at this point should be talking about a war. We should be talking about disengagement. And Zelensky, frankly, the way he was treated, I think President Trump was far too gentle. I'm surprised that two giant Secret Service agents did not come in, pick him up, and remove him from the office. But the way he handled Zelensky is the way he's got to handle Netanyahu. Because if he doesn't, Netanyahu will drag him into the abyss. Because he wants this war in the Middle East come hell or high water. And it's not in their interest.
Colonel Douglas MacGregor with Tucker Carlson on Tucker Carlson's latest podcast episode. Really worth listening. About an hour and a half long interview. And you only heard a couple of little segments there. And I could have played... the whole thing was interesting, so I could have played the whole thing. Trump did know when he got into office that the left had diminished our military significantly over the 4 years. And I understand that one of the first things he did is start to fire that engine up again. He's ordered more ammunition and shells and got new weapons, but all that stuff takes time.
No, it doesn't happen overnight. And we have steel production, but we've it's been shut down. We have aluminum production. It's been shut down. We used to build ships. I remember when I worked down south and I would drive past the yards in Pascagoula,
Sure.
Mississippi, going down to Florida or out in the West Coast. But we don't have any of that anymore. Now, you talk about the military-industrial complex. When Trump was in office the last time, he did actually order things to build up the military. But since we build our ships in other yards, it takes a while for them to build them. A ship is not, they can be built fast, but not when you contract it out to a foreign country, to a foreign shipyard. It takes 4 or 5 years. There was a ship that was put in wraps. I forget what dock it came out of, and everybody was looking because there was no crew on it. And it's a destroyer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And it's all AI and automated. So I'm pretty sure it's a pretty lethal thing. I can only guess, knowing some of the things that are out there, of what it's capable of doing and whatnot. But we need to be able to build these things because when that ship just came out, but it was conceived half a decade ago.
They built down in New Orleans during the war things like Higgins boats. They were like the landing craft that you see in Normandy. Those boats were made down in New Orleans. They also had they needed cargo ships big time during World War II. So they figured out a way to make them modularly. They had different segments made in different locations. They put them together, welded them together, and off they went. They can have a boat built in no time. They built these systems and got them in play during World War II that worked. We're not there yet. We've become fat and lazy, essentially.
The old PT boats, the patrol boats, they were plywood, and they had Chrysler engines in them. For God's sakes, you could hear them 10
Yeah.
miles away, but they could manufacture them quick, and they did the job. And, we can do a lot of stuff.
We have got to get off. I don't care what anybody says. You cannot leave $85 billion worth of anything behind and think it's just okay. We don't really need it. We'll make it up. It's going to take a while to make up that much stuff, no matter how big and strong and successful you are.
Our merchant ships. Remember World War II? The Germans would go after the merchant ships with
Right.
the U-boats. Hamas has said no ship now is safe at sea from them.
No British ship. No British
ship.
Yeah.
But that'll change in due time. And the one thing I worry about,
and I think that basically is in the Black Sea they're talking about. No
but
ship
that'll
in the Black Sea.
expand.
Yeah, I agree.
That will expand. The other thing that's going to expand is we tried to contain the genie when we came up with the nuclear bomb, but you knew that really that came from the seeds of Germany, and it's all the superpowers have it. There are little countries that I never knew had them that actually have nukes now, and I'm like going, why do they need them? But the fact that they're so widespread, you got Hamas out there. Surely they know how to get their hands on one. As a matter of fact, Kim Jong-un was warning things that he might be doing something here in the next 30 days with his. So I'm sitting there going, one of my fears is not so much the military involvement, but somebody somewhere is just going to go that doesn't understand what they have or the consequences. They understand what they have, but they don't understand the long-term consequences.
If you're nuts enough to threaten the world with nuclear war, then I would submit that you don't really have an understanding of what you'll do, what you'll start. I mean, if you have it's like a kid. If you give a kid a loaded gun, like a 9mm, they don't really know what that thing can do, how it can change the world permanently for people. They don't know. They just know they got a gun, and if they pull the trigger, it'll go bang, and they don't understand. And that I look at North Korea. They're ridiculous. For them to have nuclear weapons, it's ridiculous.
Well, look, anybody can sit there and go to the internet to figure out the firing mechanism, and you can look up different books. You could figure out how to get enriched uranium and make a suitcase bomb. Now it's only maybe 10, not even kiloton, but it's enough to sit there and wipe a city out. All right,
you can steal nuclear hospital waste, dirty nuclear hospital waste.
Well, you know where else you can get it? They have nuclear energy programs at colleges, like North Carolina State.
Sure,
because I knew
MIT,
a guy that was
places like that. Yeah,
I knew a guy that was a nuclear regulatory inspector, and he'd go in. He goes, "You're going to the North Carolina University?" He goes, "Oh yeah, they got a 5 meg reactor in there." And I'm going, "Oh, I didn't know that." He goes, "Oh yeah, they've got all the." So because you have to train the people to know how to work with this for the power sources,
and they also have protocol as to how to dispose of waste, but they're not always disciplined about doing so.
Right. It can be gotten. I'm just saying you can get it, and you can get the trigger mechanism, and that's what you got to be worried about Hamas, because you get these terrorists that are, what do they gain by blowing themselves up? But in their religion, believe it or not, they sit there, they believe the gates of Allah heaven open up for them, and they get 13 hookers and all this stuff, and I'm like going, what? But they're doing it for what they believe in, and they'll carry that.
Look at the world right now, the world we're living in. Look at Syria. We have, and folks, you don't have to go to the site. Just take my word. If you go to the site, it'll make you sad and angry. But there are videos of radical Muslims who are walking down the street and indiscriminately shooting innocent Christians to death on the street. Just bang, bang, like they were vermin. Okay? It's like it's no big deal. You're dead, you're dead, you're dead. And they keep going. And these are people that they're killing. It's happening to thousands right now in Syria. And it's not getting the exposure worldwide because it doesn't meet a worldwide narrative that a certain group of people want to present. You know,
Right.
we hear about, for example, this Mahmoud Khalil at Columbia University, who has had his green card pulled, and they're going to ship him back. The left is trying to make a civil rights martyr out of this guy. They're trying to make him look like he's the victim. This is the
But
guy.
how is he the victim? He could be.
This is the guy who started the fight. He's the guy who started the rabble-rousing at the university and encouraged people to go into the building and disrupt the classes. You know, you spend $100,000 a year to send your kid to college. You kind of expect they're going to get an education and not be locked out of their classroom. So I mean, But anyway, this guy Khalil, they're trying to make it like he has a civil right to stay in this country. Understand something, folks. Understand something right now. The Secretary of State has the right at his discretion to remove the guy's green card and send him back. End of story. You're going to get judges who are going to say, the Secretary of State doesn't have a right to do that, and he should, I'm going to put a restraining order on his action. Horse crap. Historically, the Secretary of State can walk into a room and say to a guy with a green card, I don't like how you're acting, you're going back. And that's it. He's going back. You know? Mm-hmm. So don't think you're going to hear a lot of noise from the left saying, well, the courts are going to rule. Just like all these decisions we talked about at the top of the show, where they're trying to get Pete Hegseth to not only to stop doing something, but to retract a statement that he made on X. If I were Pete Hegseth, I'd flip that judge a big bird. You have no right to. I have a right to free speech on any platform I want to, and it's called free speech for a reason. You may not like it. It may offend you. It may tick off your sensitive parts, but that's too bad. Just like there are people who don't like our program. That's fine. You don't have to listen. No one is holding a gun to your head to listen to our program. So the fact of the matter is, the left is in the process now of drastically overstepping into areas that it never has done before. The judiciary, understand, it's a separate branch of government. The judiciary, even at the lower levels, has decided that they have the right, these district judges have a right to say to the president and the head of the executive branch of government, you can't do that, sir. And forget the sir, they're not even that respectful. You can't do that. You can't do this, this, and this, and you have to stop. This is the crisis they're going to be in, I think. And I think they're doing this intentionally in the executive branch. They're letting the left overstep, one after the other to build up their case. And I think they're going to go at some point to the Supreme Court and put this basket of nonsense on their doorstep and say, we are a branch separate and equal, all right? And you haven't got the right, nobody has a right to interfere with how we run our branch of government. It is a violation of the Constitution of the United States. These judges do not have power with our decisions. And I think we're going in that direction. I could be wrong. Yeah. I'm not a lawyer. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, we really and truly have got to be, in my opinion, more careful. And by the way, the left media, every time a decision comes out, they make it sound like it's final. It's a sacrosanct. It's almost a religious decision. My God, the district judge said he can't do it. Well, that settles that. No. Do what Biden did, like I said, with the college loans, and ignore it. See what happens. Nothing.
Well, nothing happens because you had the left media in control of the narrative. And even though they're sinking with, their ratings and their financial wherewithal, you wonder how they continue. They still continue, and they do that. So if Trump ignores something, Oh, they'll be all over it like stink on you know what. And that's just the way it is. That's the world we live in. I'm not happy with it, but that's just the way it is. And if you want to personally, you should be able to count on the Supreme Court. But they have failed us so many times.
Over and over again. But,
I'm not going to hold my breath.
Well, I mean, again, it was the Supreme Court who ruled against Biden, and Biden ignored them. And Biden literally, the Biden people said, the Biden people said essentially, we are a and equal branch of government, and we don't have to abide by their ruling. The people have to abide by our ruling.
So what good is the Supreme Court?
The Supreme Court, well, in decisions that don't include anything with the executive branch or the legislative branch, they're very important. I mean, if they're ruling on cases that come up from lower courts to them, then they're very important. But you have to understand that there are three separate and equal branches of government. That's the way the system is designed. And the fact of the matter is,
so what they say doesn't mean squat.
Well, when you abdicate, it would be nice if the Supreme Court ruled in the favor of the executive branch, because that would just be a reaffirmation, of what the executive branch did.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, Joe Biden proved the executive branch said, we're an equal branch. We don't have to care. We don't care what you said. We're going to give out those college loans, and to hell with you.
Well, there's freedom of speech, but there's also freedom of not telling the truth that goes on from the left. They have the bully bullhorn. And so they sit there. It's not what the Supreme Court does. It's what they say about it. They control that narrative. This is a sick country.
Yeah, it is.
It's been sick for a long time, and I don't see it getting any better. Yes, Trump is doing some great things, but they're blocking him all the way, and I think their plan is right now. They're on retreat right now, so they can sit there and figure out their war plans and figure out how they're going to.
Oh, they've got more. They got so many problems, Bill. I heard that Rahm Emanuel is considering running for president.
Yeah.
And trust me, that would be such a huge mistake. He has got a lot of baggage. He was confidant to the Clintons and to Obama. I think he was the mayor of Chicago for a while too. He's a real leftist, but they've got to find somebody who's truly intelligent and generally could be acceptable to the mainstream. And I don't see anybody.
Go back to the last time that the Democrats were trying to get filled some politicians when Joe got into the arena. As a matter of fact, it was Bernie Sanders that was doing well at all the rallies all the way up through and all the primaries all the way up through. Joe wasn't doing anything. He was losing all the major ones. Then all of a sudden, boom, he wins one. Well, that's it. He's the guy. And it just seemed funny how everything turned.
President Trump is absolutely convinced he won in 2020 and believes
I am too,
and believes he has the evidence, and he never pulls any punches on that. He will come out and he'll say in that fraudulent 2020 election that I won. He says it all the time, and the media goes nuts. Oh, he's an election denier. Are you an election? Come on.
Well, I mean, yeah, you look at that, and when he did question it, you don't believe the results? Yeah, give me the proof. We don't have to give you the proof. We won. Yeah, and then, they said it was an insurrection. And now the one thing that the right has got to realize, it wasn't an insurrection, and don't even let the Democrats hold on to that narrative because...
Well, you know what they did to us? Not us particularly, but in a way to us. I mean, they deplatformed a lot of these social media companies. Deplatformed people who happen to believe that 2020 was stolen. If you said
we
that,
were deplatformed. We were kicked off of YouTube. We were kicked off of or shut down several times. I spent weeks in the Facebook jail. Ooh. Screw you, Facebook. But either way, and you too, YouTube, because they're, social media, and if you don't agree with their narrative...
Well, what's amazing is, what's his name? The guy who owns Zuckerberg. He came out
Yeah.
and just about 2 months ago, and he said he did a mea culpa in public. Oh, we were wrong. I apologize. And
They still do it.
and it's not going to happen again. We're going to have it's a new Facebook, and we're not going to be putting people out to pasture because they happen to have a difference of opinion. We believe in free speech. Then what happened to us over the last week? We had our stuff was pulled. By the way, if you notice on our posts, if you don't see the links attached to our posts, it's because
we got a notice that said does not meet our community standards, and we do not put descriptions in the links. We just say, here's the link, you go to it, and there's the podcast.
And what we also don't do on this program, for the most part, is we don't put together a program that we couldn't air on any talk station in the country. We have a background in media, in broadcasting, professional broadcasting, and you don't hear us using F-bombs indiscriminately and things like that, like a lot of other podcasts do, because we have respect for the audience, and we happen to think that you can do it without doing that. So for them to come out and say to put us in the doghouse, they're putting us in the doghouse just because they don't like our political opinions, pure and simple.
Yeah, that's true.
But they will show, the same site will show a scantily clad young woman doing something suggestive, and they will not pull that picture. I've seen it all the time on Facebook.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, but they do, and I'm sure porn sites are going, how do they get away with that? Because, you got to be 18, you got to be this, you got to be that. But apparently, they have an exemption, and I'd sure like to know what that exemption is. I think they're going to kill, I thought social media was a good thing. It came along, it allowed you to check up on old friends, keep up with family members and do different things. And you can promote your business. Hey, I got a hair shop. We got a special going on this week. Yep, I got a podcast. Here's the link, and I don't care if you're left or right. You have a freedom to, as long as you're not telling people to go out and hurt and see, that's another thing. If on the right you say, go out and protest, disrupt.
Well, that happens all the time on the left when they're talking about.
Yeah, they can do it.
Yeah, we'll have a rally in front of Columbia University. Join us, no big deal. That can stay up. But if two guys decide to just having a conversation about politics and we don't agree with them, off it goes. So you'll find that on when I post it, I'll just say the latest episode is up there. You're welcome to go get it, essentially. And we're not trying to be shortcutting or making it harder for you to find us, but we also want you to know it's there, No,
it's there for you, and you can get it. And you know what? If you don't see a post, there's a damn good chance that somebody has stopped it, because at some point in time, they're going to go, oh, he's just mentioning the show, go get it yourself. At some point in time, just a post by us is going to be considered, harmful. They did get back to us, by the way, and said, oh, there's no restrictions on your account or anything like this. But I had the pictures, the screenshots of it, and they said, no, there was never. We don't know where you got that. Really, it was your algorithm that did it.
Yeah.
So you're lying through your teeth.
Hey, an interesting story. A disgruntled leftist spray painted "Long Live the Ukraine" and accidentally lit himself on fire when he torched 3 Tesla charging stations in a South Carolina parking lot on Friday. The angry Trump hater lit the clothes on his back on fire after hurling incendiary devices at the Tesla charging station. So I'm thinking, let's say hypothetically, he's wearing like a hoodie, with a little hood in the back and it's puffed up, and he had a bottle with a lit wick on it, and his gasoline in the bottle, and if he raises it like a baseball over his shoulder, he probably lit his hoodie on fire, and he probably was very surprised. They didn't get him, by the way. I understand he ran off, but I would imagine it was more like he probably danced off, and when he disappeared, I envisioned him either rolling around somebody's lawn or or
Well, I'm sure it spilled all the way down his back and other
gee.
places. I mean, it really had to burn his butt, but either way.
And the other thing is this: if he did have it, if that's what happened to him, Bill, if it burned his back, I got to think that he had to go to the hospital for treatment.
You would think either that, or there's somebody in buying a lot of bandages. And,
if somebody's buying a ton of like lidocaine or something like that, or there's a good chance that maybe he's helping that guy through his misery.
If you see a guy with a burned hoodie around there, he's got it on, slap him in the back.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing, pal?
If the back of his head, if you notice your friend has like no hair, there's a good chance.
He's got singed curly cues. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
You can't make this stuff up. There was a judge in Utah,
really,
that apparently there was a fire chief that was arrested and doing jail time
for what?
Waiting for everything. Doing bad things with children.
A pedophile. Ooh,
a pedophile. But this judge said, no. I'm letting this guy free. And the next thing you know,
he just let the guy go.
Let the guy go, and then I guess they got together, and then they were caught in
wait. The judge and the pedophile got together?
Yeah, and they were doing pedophile type stuff, and they got arrested together. So
what you're saying is the judge released his partner to go out and do more stuff, and it looks like he met him in the parking lot.
Yeah, looks like you were having fun. Can I join you this time? Yeah, because I can get us out of jail. Actually, I'm laughing at it, but I'm not, because you know what?
There's a victim, right? And that's the sad part. But what's silly is the story itself. I still think the funniest story of the two, though, is the guy who lit his hoodie on fire or whatever.
Well, he's a light-up guy.
I would imagine trying to put that out is a son of a gun. I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah, well, he's a bright fella.
And you can't just run to your car and hop in. Do you pull your hood off? I guess you pull it off, right? So if you see a guy running around with no clothes on in the parking lot.
Well, here's what's interesting. What is in the material? Is there like polyester or like,
a lot of that stuff is really flammable,
Yeah, and melts.
Yeah, a lot of that cheap Chinese clothing that they get,
So, you're wearing plastic. So, you'd get that burned into your skin.
Ouch. Ooh, that's got to hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really feel sad for the guy.
Hey, do you know who Kennedy is on Fox? Kennedy is she's a young woman on Fox. She used to be a MTV music host. I'm talking like 20 years ago.
Right.
And she just goes by her name Kennedy. I'm sure it's like Lisa Kennedy or something like that, but she's always been known just as Kennedy. She's a pretty sharp gal. She was on, I think she was on Gutfeld, and she was talking about The View and specifically about Joy Behar, who is always, she's about as funny as getting hit by a truck. But anyway, this is what she said Kennedy did about Joy Behar. Listen.
I auditioned for The View in 2003 and went pretty far through the process and got along great because Starr was there. Barbara Walters is still alive. God rest her soul. She was lovely. Meredith Vieira was still there. We talked about conservative politics. Joy was a talking hemorrhoid in an auburn wig. She was so ungracious and awful, and she had a comedy writer writing her little lines during the breaks, and I was like, she's not even funny. She's not reacting to anything. She's not thinking in the moment. And then I made some jokes because it's a conversational show before it became an unwatchable abortion, because usually they're so much fun to watch.
Yes, they really are.
And she said to me during the break, I'll handle the comedy here.
No.
And I said, great, whenever you start, like I'll ease up on the
You can't judge a book by its cover, and that is one ugly cover.
It's a leathery cover, Greg.
It's a leathery, beat-up cover. All right.
That's Kennedy with Gutfeld on his program, and it was a hemorrhoid with the auburn wig. She is tough to take, and they've ruined that show. That show was more interesting, 15, 20 years ago when they had diverse people on the panel. Now they're just angry, cackling people who It's just not fun to watch. And, when you hear the audience applaud and stuff like that, I should point out to our listeners that many times they're being coached to do that from a stage manager. They're being told to do it, essentially. Applaud, he turns around and claps, and all of a sudden the audience is supposed to clap or cheer. Not necessarily what they really feel. It's just doing what they're told to because they're sitting in the studio audience. It's television, folks. But anyway, I have a feeling, Bill, that show hasn't got a long time left in it. It's running out of road, as they would say, The View, because it's just not funny. Do you know what happened at the New York Times? New York Times.
They got some people were told, well, you know what? You can get reassigned or hit the bricks.
Yeah.
Take your buyout.
This is the editorial page. They've said, you got to change your opinions on stuff or you're gone. Simple as that. And now that's for the New York Times to say that, because they have been in unison for years left on everything.
Who owns the New York Times?
It's a family that owns it. I want to say Saltzman or Salzburgers. It's owned by a family. But there's writing on the wall. First of all, it's not making money. Although I do think was the New York Times bought out by some wealthy company? I have to check on that. That's a good question. But I think that the writing on the wall is if you don't start to fall in line with our readers, we're going to lose more than we have now, and we're going to be even less profitable than we are now. They're not making money. The New York Times it's like these things. If the world were a normal world and economics played no favorites, then the New York Times would have been out of business a long time ago because they don't make money. They are subsidized, essentially. They're propped up many times to stay in business. There was a time when the New York Times was very profitable, but it's not now. You look at the Washington Post. Washington Post, for example, same kind of situation. Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos. You would think unlimited resources, incredibly deep pockets, but he's not a fool. He's not a fool, and to just throw good money after bad for the sake of owning a newspaper, it's not his idea of a good investment. And even a guy who's much more leftist than the normal person, Bezos, he turned around about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, and said to his staff, "I want some conservative opinions on this paper, or we're going to be making some changes."
Very expensive to run a newspaper. I mean, not only the cost of the reporters, but the building, the time, the printing presses, the paper, the distribution. The list goes on and on and on. And I'm sure that there's so much competition now for sponsors that, somebody that might sit there and say, yeah, I'll pay, $5,000 or $10,000 for the back page, which is actually a drop in the bucket. Well, you can get all kinds of stuff now for pennies on the dollar. So they're probably hurting financially.
I mean, all you have to do is look at companies like Newsmax. Newsmax is up 300% in billings over last year. Not because they're the greatest TV network, but they're consistent. They have one message, and they stay with that message. It's a message that relates to the masses and to their audience. And you look at the New York Times, they've got to look over and say, we're doing something wrong here. We have a reach, but yet we don't have the revenue. I love to see the people. There are people who read the New York Times like it's the Bible. Like a clergyman does the Bible every day. They get their New York Times, they get their coffee, and they read it. Even conservatives read it. I wouldn't be caught dead with it. And it's not because I don't read. It's because I don't read nonsense.
If I were the owner of a paper, to be honest with you, I'd sit there and say, we can't break news anymore. News happens. It's going to take us a while. We got to write the story. We got to sit there and set the prices go and get it out there. it's already all over the internet. It's on your smart device. It's on the radio. So you don't have that advantage anymore. It is the power of the spoken printed word. Go ahead.
But the strength of a Washington Post and a New York Times, Bill, the only thing they have to sell that you can't get on the internet is their opinion.
Exactly. That's where I was going. But I would be careful about the opinion. Now, it doesn't matter that they have a left opinion, but I wouldn't be always the same damn slant all the time. You want to go to somebody that's reliable to give you, the entire slant left and right that you're not going to get anywhere else.
The thing is,
good.
Right now, podcasts have taken the place of the opinion page of a lot of newspapers. And shows like this show, shows like the Rogan show, shows like Tucker's show. They are shows that have an opinion, and people either like it, disagree, or don't disagree, but they get it instantly. And they get it every day. And they get it, for the most time, for free.
What you don't want to do is be an also-ran. And that's what they are. They're an also-ran. We hate too. We hate too. Everybody hates Trump if they're on the left. Do something original and different, and then all of a sudden your print platform becomes something tangible. Right now, it's toilet paper, it's birdcage liner, whatever,
Well, and a lot of these newspapers have cut their printing down. For example, in Pittsburgh, I think the local paper prints like Thursday, Fridays. Is it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? It doesn't print 7 days a week. It's online, I believe, 7 days a week, but they don't print it 7 days a week.
Now, they can put news out immediately online. I would make the online and the paper two different things that are special. The online is how you get our instant news, but I would take opinions out of that. Now, the paper, I would sit there, I would do balanced opinions, but I would sit there and make sure that what was there was unique and can't be gotten anywhere else, and it's pretty damn obvious if somebody tries to steal it, and it's got more shelf life.
There was a time, folks, where people would grab the Sunday paper for the ads, for the coupons and things like that, and they used to be about 3 inches thick, the papers. The newspaper boys hated to deliver them because they were so heavy, and it was so hard to do. Well, now the ads will be, and the coupons will be on the websites, and they will essentially be barcodes that you can flash on a scanner from your cell phone. You don't even have to cut them out anymore.
Yeah, they're digital. And
so they don't have to buy those expensive ads anymore on the newspaper. So they're being crushed by the electronic media. We could go on and on, Bill. I just looked at, we've been talking a lot today. It's been a busy show. I should point out, before I forget one more time, that it would be deeply appreciated if you try our delicious Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee at rightsideshop.com. But specifically, the easiest way to do it, you can just type, as Bill said, go to your Google search engine or your DuckDuckGo or whatever, and type in Jim and Bill and hit enter, and bingo, we'll come right to the top. It'll be Jim and Bill's It's Another Day. Click on it. You go to our homepage. You'll see some of the things that we're selling in our gift shop, and you can click on any one of those items that interest you. It'll take you right to the page that gives you the whole description, and then you can order it right from there. It's really very, very easy. And when you buy the coffee, it's a delicious medium blend roast of decaf and regular coffee, and it hits the spot. Great way to start your day. Perfect way to start your day, actually, is to get our podcast, download our podcast, go get yourself a nice hot cup of Jim and Bill's Right Side coffee, put your feet up on a nice, a hassock or something. Do they still call them hassock? What do they call it? Go to your nearest recliner, sit back, enjoy your coffee, listen to our show, and it'll be a great way to start your day. And our shows,
footstool or ottoman, get your feet propped up.
Yeah, so they used to call them when I was a kid. Those like a little hassock. Is that a term? Have you heard that term before, hassock? You
No.
look confused. Maybe it's an East Coast thing. Maybe it's something that my folks just said. I don't know. But anyway, it's the thing you put, one of those little things you put your
We used
feet
to have
up.
Doomofficials in our house.
You got a Doomofficial. I've heard of Doomofficial.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I'll
mostly
tell you
German, though, isn't it? Doomofficial? Yeah.
Something like that.
Or is that
yeah.
Russian? Anyway.
Well, a little bit of both, actually.
Is it really? Hey, we also have Juan Jose and the Border Crossers. They're anxiously, they were almost breaking out into tears because they thought we forgot them. We would never forget you guys. If you would.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Right Side Coffee. Try it. It's available right now. All you have to do is go to our website, itsanotherday.com, and there you'll find it right there. We've made it as simple as possible. The only easier way of doing it is if we actually drove by your house and showed you the bag, But I haven't got the time.
Yeah, well, and people kind of wonder when I'm standing out in the front yard holding up a bag of coffee, pointing at it, and they're going, what the hell is
Who's that man, Mommy? Yeah.
I don't know, son, but stay away from him. Yeah.
Anyway, that's just about going to do it for us, my friend. I'm finished for the day. Anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I think that's it. So I'll just say the one thing that everybody's been waiting for, and if you have a pen and paper, you might want to write this down. Hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.